Tonight, we are not just telling a story. We are stepping into a world where a single word can sever your life in two, now word that, in your century, might be whispered in jest. In a Halloween costume, a fantasy novel, a harmless game. NBUT here in the late 15th century. It is heavier than iron, sharper than any blade, more final than the closing of a coffin lid. You don't know it yet, but this day will echo through centuries. NTHE way people look at you will change. The way they whisper, close your eyes. NTHE, first thing you notice is not the cold. It's the damp. Moisture clings to your skin, heavy and chill, as if the air itself is made of water. It smells of smoke and iron, of wet wood and rotting straw. Beneath it all a sharp tang, old tallow from burned candles. The faint copper bite of blood. Blood that no scrubbing could ever wash from stone. Voices low, urgent blur in the thickness of morning fog. Boots grind over cobblestones. The sound rolls through the air like the slow turning of a wheel, and you know that wheel is turning for you. You open your eyes. The year is 1487, the narrow courtyard in a small German town. Houses lean in toward each other like conspirators. Timber frames blackened with age. Plaster walls streaked with damp and windows dark save for the occasional glint of a watching eye. NTHE sky is dull pewter, low. Heavy and pressing down until the town feels like a sealed box, and you are trapped inside. Cobblestones stab cold into your bare feet, your ankles ache. Your wrists bear the rope's deep impressions. The rope from your trial, you avoid their eyes. But the eyes are everywhere, sharp, suspicious, unblinking. Some filled with triumph, some with fear, and some with a hunger you do not yet understand. And the hunger of people who have just been given permission to see you as less than human. You are a woman accused of witchcraft. You have already stood in the hall, the damp wood, the candle smoke, the press of human breath. Too close. You have already faced the judge, a man with a velvet cap and eyes like polished stone. He would not hold your gaze, as though meeting your eyes might confirm your guilt. NTHE Latin slipped past you like water. You caught only fragments. Maleficium, superstitio, demonium, NBUT, one word you understood completely. Guilty. NTHE trial was not the end. It was the beginning. Behind you, someone spits on the cobblestones. Ahead, a heavy wooden door creaks open. NTHE bailiff steps out. Mud cakes his boots. His shoulders stoop under the weight of the morning. In his hands, a long sheet of parchment, edges curled, corners blackened as if touched by fire. It trembles. Not from wind. The air is too still. It trembles because he knows what it holds. And holding it feels dangerous. You realize you do not yet know the verdict's true meaning. And in your time, a gavel falling, the word guilty spoken, is the end. Here, it is only a doorway, and beyond a road you have never walked. On a road you have never walked. Perhaps be thrown into a dungeon so deep you forget the sound of your own name. Nor worse, a cough, quickly swallowed, and all eyes are on you. You are no longer a person. You are an event. and a spectacle to be remembered. I was there when they read her sentence. They will tell strangers, and somewhere deep within you a thought rises cold. Sharpened today, they decide what to do with me. Tomorrow they will remember me differently. NTHE Bailiff's voice slices the air, and in the matter of heresy, sorcery, and malefic arts, NTHE words spill out like a blade leaving its sheath. You hear a little else. You are too busy watching his lips, noticing the parchment tremble, counting the heartbeats between each sentence. A dog barks, a child whispers, and is shushed. NTHE verdict is coming. Not the part in court records, not the part told in sermons. NTHE part no one speaks of the days and nights that follow. The places the convicted are taken, the lives they are forced to live before the final moment comes. You will learn what happens to witches after the trial. In footprint. Let the day begin. Before your eyes even open, something burns your nose. It is not the clean smoke of a hearth fire, not the sweet curl of incense from a church altar. This is sharper, harsher, the stench of rotting leather, no mangiato anger, the sweat baked deep into wool, of animal tallow gone rancid. It smells like the inside of someone else's cloak, and because you slept in it. Last night. NBUT, it isn't night anymore. Heavy boots thud overhead. Slow, deliberate. Hours have passed. The faint light gray. You shift. The damp beneath you seeps deeper into your bones. Your hand lifts instinctively to wipe your cheek and brushes against stone. Cold. And wet and pitted stone. You remember where you are. NTHE trial ended yesterday. The bailiff's voice, too loud and yet somehow too far away, reading your verdict. You were led through the crowd, through narrow streets, past market stalls, and the blacksmith's shop. The smell of hay and fresh bread, faded by something else. NTHE stench of the Gael. They call it a jail here. Spelled like the old Norman wood. But really it's just a stone pit. NN01 outside this courtyard would call it a prison. But for you it is the entire world. When they shoved you inside, the first thing you noticed was the temperature. Not the open-air chill of a winter morning, but the cellar cold. Falling into some unseen puddle. Not first you counted the drops, trying to make sense of time. But eventually, the rhythm slowed until it felt like it was counting you instead. You sit up now and your body aching from the hunch you slept in. Your wrists still bound. The rope scratches raw skin, wounds from yesterday's march. You try breathing through your mouth to escape the stink. But the air tastes just as foul as it smells. It tastes of rust, and as if each breath pulls in flakes of iron scrape. They do not speak. Perhaps they cannot. Their faces, pale in the low light. Their bodies, wrapped in whatever scraps of cloth they've clung to. And one shifts and you see an ankle swollen, red. The skin broken where iron shackles bite deep. You push back against the wall, feeling its wet, cold seep through your threadbare shift. You tell yourself, you will not look like them. You will not stay long enough to rot into the stones. NBUT, you know, sentence Weeks pass before the executioner calls your name, and those weeks are often worse than the punishment itself. Surprise historical fact N. In 15th century Europe, most convicted witches were not burned or hanged the next day. They were kept in damp cells for weeks, even months. Executions could only happen on certain feast days or when an official executioner was present. Many never reached the stake or gallows. N. Disease and neglect claimed them first. You didn't know that yesterday. You know it now. You shift your legs, searching for warmth and movement. Every motion sends aches rippling up your spine. Your stomach growls dry, hollow. The last thing you ate was a crust of bread after the verdict. Want a wooden bucket near the bars. It smells faintly like the same drip you've been hearing since last night. You hesitate, not sure if it'll keep you alive or end you faster. A key turns, you jolt upright, not for covering your head when they take you outside again. NTHE parchment he doesn't read aloud. You catch only the wax seal read, stamped with a symbol you can't make out. NHE tosses the bundle at your feet. It lands in the damp with a wet, unpleasant slap. You don't ask where you're going. Part of you doesn't want to know. Another part, the part still burning from yesterday's verdict, wants to see the sky again. And even if it's the last sky you'll see. NTHE guard turns. The cell door shuts with a sound like the world closing in on it. Market bells ring for midday. The town is alive. People are trading breadcloth, grain. While you sit here measuring your life in the distance between drips of water, you breathe in shallowly. You'll get used to it. Or you won't. Your first task is simple in name, but impossible in practice, and stay alive long enough to reach midday. You might think that means keeping your body intact. It doesn't. It means guarding the parts of yourself and that hunger and cold cannot touch. NTHE rags they threw at you last night are damp when you wake. They cling to your skin, heavy cold, smelling faintly of mold and something sour. You hold them tighter anyway. Because the chill of the cell bites deeper without them. You shift your... It offers no comfort. Every stone is wet. The damp crawls through fabric and into your bones. It comes when the guards decide it comes. You hear boots before you see them. The slow, deliberate walk of someone who knows no one inside can refuse what he's carrying. No wooden bowl is shoved through the bars. Inside, something thick and gray, a slurry of grain and water that smells faintly of ash. You've seen animal feed that look better. You take it anyway. NTHE first mouthful is cold. But hunger does not ask questions. You notice others in the cell watching. Not with kindness, but with calculation. NTWO men thin as splinters and sit near the far wall. Noblemen, older than you, hair matted, knives following the bowl with a stare that twists your stomach. You pull the bowl closer into your chest. This is the first thing you learn here. Food is not a meal. It is a possession. And possessions and possessions and possessions are never clean. And water is... The guard filled it this morning, but it's already lower than it should be. You wondered how long it will last before you are desperate enough not to care in what floats in it. NTHE third thing you learn. Knives are sharper than knives. And even when no one moves towards you, you feel them in measuring your body, your clothing, the ropes at your wrists. You try to stand confidently, But inside your head, a voice shouts in, "What if they notice I don't belong here? What if they see I've never slept on stone before?" Because here, even in the darkened, people smell weakness. NTHE Guard's voice echoes down the hall. In work, you stand because you must downsaddle somewhere. They lead you to a yard no larger than a chapel floor. NTHE air is brighter here, though the sky is still gray. A pile of wood sits in the center. You're handed a dull, uneven blade. NNO1 tells you what to do. Your hands close around the handle. You are expected to know. Your hands close around. You notice something. NTHE, older prisoners, those with hollow cheeks, slow, deliberate motions, never work too quickly. NIF, they finish their pile too fast, they get more. You match their pace. OSPAS, your arms burn, your palms ache. Wood dust clings to your skin like a second layer. NTHE cold wind carries smoke from a fire you cannot see. A reminder of what fires mean here. When they lead you back, the woman in the corner speaks N for the first time. NHER voice is a whisper, not to hide secrets, but because she barely has strength left. You're new, you nod. Truth is, you don't know if you want to admit it. Here. New means you still have something left to lose. NTHE, rest of the day drags. Broken into work, silence, and the occasional bark of a guard's order, once in laughter from the street outside. It feels impossibly far away, like a sound from another world. By evening, your hands are cracked. Raw NTHE Gray Slurry appears again. This time you eat faster, your stomach already hollow. When the guard takes the bowl away, you're left in darkness. NNO candle, no fire, only breathing, some steady, some labored, and the drip of water that has measured your time since you arrived. You wrap the rags tighter, lie on your side, back pressed to the wall. Your mind drifts into the crowd yesterday, their eyes fixed on you, their faces still. Sure, you wonder if they sleep in warm beds now. If they tell the story of your trial to friends over supper. NIF, they've already forgotten how your name sounded when the judge said it. Deep inside, you hear it again. NTHE voice and whispering since the trial. And maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe the gods made a mistake. NBUT, you keep breathing, because here, breathing is the only victory you have left. The chapel doors groan shut behind you, sealing away the world outside. Candles flicker along the altar, their flames bending and swaying as though reacting to your breath. Each one feels like a watchful eye. Witness Ndehende Yen trembles slightly as he lifts the book, but his voice does not falter. NTHE scripture pours out, words you do not understand. Yet they strike you all the same. Yet they strike you all the same. Sharp as stones, heavy as chains. Your wrists. The townsfolk stand in silence at the back of the chapel. Mothers clutch their children. Old men cross themselves. Their eyes never leave you. NTO them, this ritual is not just faith. It is protection. In a wall built against the darkness they fear you carry. And still, the words echo. You are not just a servant. You are the offering. An NTHE priest presses the crucifix to your forehead. It is colder than the stones beneath your knees. You flinch, and a gasp escapes the crowd. The hymn rises, low voices first, and then higher, layer upon layer until the sound fills the chapel like floodwater rising above your head. You do not know the words, but the meaning is clear. They are not singing for you. They are singing against you. Your throat is dry, your chest tight in, but still you kneel, because kneeling is the only thing left. NTHE priest closes the book with a heavy thud. It sounds like a door slamming shut, like a verdict already spoken. And the crowd shifts, and some whisper, some weep, some stare at you with eyes like sharpened stones, and still the words return, soft, relentless, carved into your skull. You are not just a servant, you are the offering. You know deep inside, this is not the end of the ritual. It is only the beginning. When they lead you back into the open air, the sky has changed. The clouds hang low and heavy, as if the heavens themselves bent closer to watch. Then you realize this was never about your soul. This was about theirs, their faith. As you step out from the dim shadows of the chapel, the harsh light of the open courtyard hits you sharply, and a stark reminder of the quiet darkness you just left behind. Here, power reveals itself in raw, unapologetic form, and unforgiving and absolute. And every stone beneath your feet, every cold gust of wind brushing your face, and whispers the same truth, and you are but a fragile, insignificant gear in a vast, relentless machine. And then the governor's cart creaks forward slowly, in its heavy wooden wheels grinding against the worn cobblestones. You watch every detail seared into your memory, and the dull sheen of iron fittings, and the worn leather straps pulled taut over the horses' backs, and the man inside, the governor himself. His face is hard and unreadable, and never once glancing your way or at the crowd lining the courtyard. NHE is the living symbol of power here, and a man whose word can bend fate, and whose silence can condemn or spare a life. You know all too well your future lies in his hands, and the weight of that knowledge presses down on your chest like a stone. Law here is no guardian of justice, and but a weapon wielded by the powerful to bind the weak. It does not protect you, and does not see you. It exists only to uphold the order that preserves the hierarchy, and blind to fairness yet fully aware of its own cruelty. You remember yesterday's trial as if it just happened, the judge's voice ringing clear and resolute, and cutting you down with words sharper than any blade. And no mercy, no doubt left behind. You were branded a witch, a threat, an outcast. And with that brand came the slow erasure of your existence. The social order here is a fortress built on centuries of tradition, fear, and blood. And at the top sit the nobles, cloaked in velvet and silk, their jewels catching the sun like flames. They feast on fine meats and sip wines that harden their wills. Their laughter rings hollow over the heads of those who toil and suffer below. Below them stand the clergy, those who speak of salvation and divine will, and yet grasp power as tightly as the nobles. Their prayers carry threats. Their rituals are both sacred and sinister. They wield the fear of God as a weapon, in shaping laws and minds alike to hold their grip. Next are the merchants and landowners, calculating and shrewd. They barter not only goods but lives, in using wealth to sway decisions, secure favors, and tighten their hold over land and people. NFOR them. Law is a ledger, a record of debts owed and collected, and a game of advantage and survival. And at the very bottom, you and the accused, the condemned, and the targets of suspicion, cruelty, and despair. You are the discarded, the voiceless scapegoats in a world that spins without care for your suffering. Law exists not to serve justice. Law exists not to serve justice, nor is but to reinforce this brutal hierarchy. And every decree, every punishment, and is another brick in the wall, separating the powerful from the powerless. The courtroom that judged you was no place of fairness, but a stage where your fate was scripted, long before you arrived. You overhear guards and officials murmuring about land seizures, taxes, and resource distribution. You realize your trial was never only about witchcraft or heresy. It was a calculated move in a larger game. A means to suppress unrest, to assert dominance, to remind the masses who truly holds the reins. Your eyes catch a wealthy merchant quietly making his way up to the governor. His smile is practiced, his words carefully measured. Their whispered conversation is cold and calculating, and a silent pact deciding who lives and who dies. NTHE guards around you do not see a person. To them, you are a problem to be controlled, a threat to be eliminated. You watch as a coin changes hands, a small exchange heavy with meaning. Your survival is a commodity and traded behind closed doors and priced without your knowledge or consent. Centuries from now, these men's names will likely be forgotten and their faces erased or rewritten by history. But today, their voices decide who eats and who starves, and who breathes their last. NTHE's sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the marketplace, and where life goes on with cruel indifference to your fate. Here, power is not granted or earned. It is seized and held by force. It is the iron grip that crushes hope beneath its weight, and the blade that severs the weak from the strong. Beneath this crushing weight, you must find a way to survive in a world that refuses to see you as anything more than a tool in its relentless machinery. Yet even in this bleak reality, somewhere deep inside you, and a spark remains, NPERHAPS hope, and perhaps defiance. A quiet ember that urges you to endure, to breathe, and to live another day against all odds. NTHE Day stretches endlessly ahead, yet time feels twisted, dragging slowly, weighed down by endless sorrow. Since morning, your lips have stayed sealed, not because you can't speak, but because the words are trapped deep within your chest, and caught in a tangled web of fear, exhaustion, and crushing despair. Around you, life moves on with harsh indifference. The chatter of market sellers, the distant clatter of horses, hooves, the low murmur of guards, and all sound like faint echoes, distant melodies beyond your reach. And inside, the silence is overwhelming. Your hands, once steady and strong, now tremble slightly as they grip the rough tools forced into them. Each coarse wooden handle presses down like shackles, anchoring you to the cold, unyielding ground. NTHE's sun climbs high above, casting golden light across the courtyard, but its warmth never reaches your heart. Instead, a tight coil squeezes deep inside your chest and relentlessly crushing your breath, your hope, your very life. You try to take a deep breath, but the air tastes thick, A bitter mix of despair, dust, and smoke. Your thoughts turn inward, spiraling into darkness filled with doubt and fractured memories. NWA's I ever meant to be here? Was I ever meant to survive? Did the gods turn their backs? Or worse, did they curse me from the start? Is this endless suffering my fate? Each question pounds like a hammer against your soul, and wearing down your strength, cracking the walls you built to shield yourself. You grasp at the fragments of who you once were, the days before suspicion darkened your neighbors' eyes, before whispered accusations became pointed fingers and loud condemnations, before the harsh court passed judgment in condemning you without mercy or chance to defend yourself. NBUT, those memories feel distant now, like shards of a fading dream slipping through your fingers as you desperately try to hold on. N. You drift, unanchored, alone in a sea of loss and uncertainty, and faces blur past you, some hardened by their own pain, others cold and indifferent, and a few marked by pity but powerless to help. You yearn for connection, for shared warmth amid suffering, but you remain isolated, trapped not only by stone walls but by suspicion, fear, and hatred. You are an outcast in a world that thrives on unity forged through exclusion. Sometimes you catch sight of others, free folk whose laughter rings like forbidden music, and their steps light and unburdened. Their ease of movement wounds you anew with every glance. NBUT, even their freedom is a gilded cage, a thin veil hiding darker truths, and they too live under cruel masters, and bound by laws that break bodies and spirits alike. Your sense of self begins to shatter beneath this relentless pressure. NWHO. Are you now in this hostile world that rewrote your story? A witch? A criminal? A threat? Or simply, more tragically, a human stripped of dignity, feared and condemned for being yourself? This question haunts you endlessly, heavier than any chain. In every moment, countless eyes watch, judging, waiting for any sign of weakness. Every tremble, every flicker of fear or pain could spark another punishment and another scar etched onto your name. You wonder if your fear is written plainly on your face, or if you hide it well beneath a mask of quiet endurance. NBUT, the isolation grows heavier, like a shadow swallowing the last light of day. And yet, even in this suffocating darkness, a quiet defiance stirs deep within you. NT. A whispered promise, not to surrender, not to let despair consume you fully. It is fragile and faint, a single ember glowing amid cold ashes in your soul. NBUT, it is enough, a fragile thread you clutch onto, delicate yet unbroken. You realize survival is no longer just about flesh and blood. It is a battle fought inside to protect your spirit, your identity, your flickering hope for something beyond this cruelty. In a harsh world ruled by rigid hierarchies and merciless laws, an emotional resilience is as vital a weapon as any sword or shield. And as the sun begins to set, painting the sky with bruised purples and bleeding reds, and the day's weight sinks deep into your bones, you are exhausted, raw in body, mind, and soul. Yet still you remain, still breathing, still enduring, still fighting in the silence that surrounds you. NTHE World will not pause or soften for your pain, but inside, you carry a secret strength, born from suffering, yet unbroken by it. And though night draws near with shadows and promises of rest, in your story is far from over. The sun slowly sinks behind jagged rooftops, bleeding deep oranges and bruised purples across the fading sky. Long shadows stretch and darken the uneven cobblestones beneath your feet, reaching like ghostly fingers that claw at your very soul. You stand in the village square, a place shaped by generations of sorrow, fear, and ruthless judgment. This is the crucible where destinies are made or destroyed, a stage where the powerful watch silently, while the powerless are stripped bare before them. In front of you, a line is drawn in the dust, a simple mark, yet heavy with unbearable meaning. It divides more than space. It splits your heart and mind. On one side lies the path of obedience, submission, survival. On the other, the dangerous road of defiance, rebellion, and perhaps death. Your future teeters precariously between these two impossible choices. Around you, a crowd gathers, shifting like a living tide. Faces blend into a sea of eyes, sharp, cold, hungry. Some filled with morbid curiosity, others with whispered hatred, and still more with fearful suspicion. Their collective gaze crushes your chest like a vice, each look 1,000 tiny wounds. Your heart pounds wildly, as if trying to break free from your ribs. The air feels thick and stifling, nearly impossible to breathe. The silence between murmurs stretches wide, vast and suffocating, like the calm before a storm. NTHE magistrate steps forward, his heavy robes brushing the ground, the metallic gleam of his chain of office catching the last light. His voice slices through the quiet like a sword, cold and absolute. Do you accept the judgment of the court? His words carry the weight of finality. No room for debate or mercy. This is the moment everything hinges on. Your answer will seal your fate. NTHE crushing weight of history bears down on you like countless stones. The faces of your ancestors, some broken, some brave, flash through your mind, their eyes haunted by memories of trials past. Their pain, their suffering, their faint hopes gather around you, demanding something from your trembling soul. NDO, you bow your head in submission? Swallow the bitter draught of injustice and choose survival, even if it means your spirit slowly dies? Or do you lift your chin, steady your breath, and speak your truth? Defying the court and the world, risking everything, your freedom, your life, your very soul. The crowd leans forward, their breath held as if all depends on this moment. Guards shift uneasily, hands tightening on sword hilts and club handles, ready to crush any spark of rebellion with brutal force. The clergy, faces stern and unforgiving, watch from the sidelines, their prayers whispered like venom sharper than any blade. You feel their accusing eyes burn into your back before you even speak. End-time fractures. Your heartbeat drums loudly in your ears, unrelenting and fierce. In this moment, you are both infinitesimally small and overwhelmingly vast, vulnerable yet defiant, fragile yet fierce. You stand at the mercy of fate's unforgiving hand, caught between the heavy weight of submission and the dangerous hope of resistance. If you choose obedience, you become a ghost among the living. Your body remains, but your spirit is bound, doomed to silent servitude that crushes hope and erases identity. Your name will fade away, your pain a quiet echo in shadow. If you choose defiance, you risk becoming a martyr, a blazing symbol for those who dare resist. Your name may be whispered fearfully by the powerful and prayed for hopefully by the oppressed. Or you might disappear into history's forgotten dead, erased but unbroken. Your mind races. Faces and voices flood back, the whispered stories of those who stood and raised their voices, only to be swallowed by fire and shadow. Names lost to time, yet their courage still flickers like embers in the darkest night. You see their faces, eyes burning with defiance as the flames close in. Their sacrifice weighs heavy in your heart, fueling a fierce, desperate fire deep inside. NTHE crowd presses closer. The air crackles with tension and fear. The world holds its breath, waiting for your choice, the eyes of generations. Past, present, future, watch, judge, and wait. Your choice is clear yet impossible. Will you bow your head and accept your chains? Or will you stand tall, voice raised, risking all for a flicker of freedom? This moment, this choice, the pale light of dawn struggles through narrow village streets, slipping between crooked timber frames and patchy plaster walls. A chill lingers in the air, mingling with faint hints of wood smoke and damp earth. You step carefully over stones worn smooth by countless footsteps, while the distant creak of a cart's wheels echoes softly in the morning stillness. NTHE Marketplace slowly stirs awake. The voices of merchants and laborers weave through the air like frayed ribbons of sound, each call sharp with urgency, every bargain weighed with desperation. Here, survival is a fragile, grinding task. It is measured not in grand triumphs or sweeping acts, but in small, relentless exchanges, trading a loaf of bread for a handful of grain, swapping worn cloth for a sliver of cured meat, exchanging favors and whispered secrets beneath watchful eyes. The economy is no generous ally, but a harsh master whose demands grow heavier with every sunrise. Your hand brushes the rough wood of a market stall as you move through the crowd, eyes flickering to the goods piled high. Pale apples spotted with rot, coarse wool cloth fraying at the edges, salted fish nestled in straw, iron tools dull in the weak light. Yet beneath the lively bustle lies a harsh truth, as unforgiving as the stones underfoot. Every trade, every coin passed, every favor granted is another thread weaving you tighter into this relentless world. Dead is as common as dust, and survival often costs more than gold can buy. A single iron nail, a simple thing, can demand a full day's labor for many. A well-forged knife, sharp enough to cut flesh or fabric, might require 2 days, work or more. Your sweat and blood are the currency exchanged for the barest necessities: food, shelter, safety. There is no generosity here, only calculation, barter, and endurance. Nearby, the blacksmith's forge roars to life, flames licking the bellows-stoked coals, sending sparks rising like tiny stars into the dim morning. Each tool forged is a lifeline, an extension of will and survival. But their price is steep. not paid only in coins, but also in loyalty, obedience, and sometimes silent suffering. Trade is a delicate dance. Trust is scarce, betrayal common. You remember whispered stories told under cover of night, tales of witches bartering their knowledge, healing herbs, charms, secret rites for shelter, protection, or coin. But such bargains carry their own shadows. Trust is rare and dangerous. Debts are often repaid in silence or worse. In this harsh world, cunning is as vital as strength. Labor here is harsh and endless. From the first blush of dawn to the last flicker of twilight, hands blister and backs ache under relentless work. The seasons dictate life's rhythm: planting, harvesting, fixing fences, tending animals. Every tool is precious, a weapon against hunger and hardship, but also a reminder of your place in a rigid hierarchy. Coins change hands like fleeting sparks in the cold dusk, small flames that light the way but offer little warmth. You wonder bitterly, how many lives are worth a pair of shoes? How many souls are silently crushed just to keep the wheel turning? NTHE technology of this time is simple but vital. Wooden carts creak under heavy loads. Iron plows gouge stubborn earth. Grain mills grind slowly under heavy stones. Each invention is a hard-won edge in the constant struggle against nature and scarcity. Yet these tools, humble as they seem, symbolize control. Owned by the few, wielded by those who demand obedience. Beneath its lively facade, the marketplace hums as a quiet theater of desperation and survival. Barter is the game. Trade the currency, and every player moves carefully on a board stacked heavily in favor of those with the most gold, sharpest swords, and coldest hearts. You feel invisible chains tightening around you, binding your fate more securely. But beneath it all, stubborn and fierce, beats the pulse of life. A refusal to surrender. A spark of hope no darkness can fully extinguish. You grew up surrounded by stories, woven from flickering flames that danced on cold stone walls, whispered in secret corners where the light dared not linger. These stories were vivid and terrifying, painted with broad strokes of shadow and fire. Witches were creatures of darkness. Women believed to consort with demons beneath the cold gaze of a moonless sky. They were said to weave curses that could blight crops, sicken livestock, and unravel the fragile threads holding entire villages together. They were monsters, villains in tales that shaped childhood fears and kept communities bound in uneasy conformity. The witch was the other, a spectral embodiment of evil lurking just beyond the reach of safety and order. Yet, as you stand now among the weathered stones, watching faces lined with hardship, suspicion, and quiet sorrow, the stark difference between legend and reality begins to unravel before you like a frayed tapestry. The myths, terrifying and seductive, are but shadows cast on a far more complex and haunting truth. NTHE woman accused of witchcraft was not a sorceress with supernatural powers. She was a healer, a midwife, a woman who held deep knowledge of herbs, healing, and the mysteries of the body and earth. knowledge passed with reverence and caution from mother to daughter through generations. Her hands, once praised for their skill and kindness, were recast as instruments of dark magic, feared and reviled. The herbs she used, roots dug from sacred earth, leaves dried in secret, tinctures brewed under watchful stars, were gifts of life as well as death. Yet, to a world trembling on the edge of chaos and change, her knowledge was dangerous, a threat to the fragile power structures desperate to maintain control. The trial itself was never about truth or justice. It was a cruel theater, a performance staged by those clinging to power in a world growing uncertain and fearful, witches became scapegoats, empty vessels into which society poured its anxieties, its unrest, its unspoken terrors. Evidence was irrelevant. Hysteria was law. Verdicts were pre-written, shaped by whispers, accusations, and the merciless machinery of fear. NTHE flames that consumed those accused were part punishment, part spectacle, designed to send a brutal message to all who watched: conform or die, obey or burn. Bodies were sacrificed to silence voices that might question, resist, or reveal uncomfortable truths. The fire's crackle masked the cries of those condemned, seeking to erase not only their lives but their memories. You understand now that the terrifying image of the witch, the crone with a crooked nose, the woman with a cat's eyes, the shadow in the dark, was a creation of fear and ignorance forged by those who wielded power like a weapon. It was a tool to fracture communities, to control the powerless through terror, and to justify cruelty in the name of order. The history recorded is a story told by rulers and judges, shaped to protect their legacy and silence dissent. NBUT, beneath the myths and the smoke of burning pyres lie the real stories, the stories of endurance, resistance, and quiet rebellion. Women who whispered prayers beneath their breath, tended wounds under the cover of night, who hid their knowledge in plain sight, passing secrets from one generation to the next. Their courage was not forged in grand heroic gestures, but in the small, defiant moments when they refused to be erased, when they chose survival over silence. The myths would have you believe you were isolated, hunted alone, broken. But the truth is richer, more complex. You are part of a hidden lineage of resilience, strength, and unyielding spirit. A legacy born not of curses and darkness, but of survival, healing, and quiet rebellion. You are not just a witch. You are the consequence. This truth burns brighter than any pyre's flame, illuminating the shadows cast by history's lies. It is a legacy that cannot be extinguished, carried forward in the silent acts of courage that ripple through the veins of time. You see now that the stories told to you, the fearful tales whispered in the dark, were meant to bury the truth beneath layers of myth and misunderstanding. But those stories cannot hide the reality of who you are. The true power lies not in legends or curses, but in the lives lived beyond them, in the healing hands that soothed pain, in the whispered prayers that defied silence, in the unbroken spirit that refuses to be forgotten. And as the night deepens and the village falls into a restless quiet, you carry this truth within you, a steady flame in the darkness. Though the world may seek to erase you, You endure. You are part of something greater, a living thread in a tapestry woven through centuries of pain, strength, and survival. You look to the sky, where stars pierce the darkness with cold, distant light. They remind you that even in the blackest night there is a spark that never dies. That even in the harshest times, the flame of hope, resilience, and truth flickers, waiting for you to kindle it again. What happened to witches after trial in medieval Europe, NTHE Sky Above, is a bruised canvas of swirling twilight, deep purples bleeding into the fading reds of a dying sun. A cool wind stirs the withered leaves at your feet, carrying the faint scent of smoke and damp earth. This evening feels heavy, pregnant with the weight of countless choices, hopes, and fears. It is not just another day passing into night. It is a threshold. You stand at the very edge of your story, where the threads of past suffering and future possibility intertwine in an unbreakable knot. NTHE journey here has been long and brutal. Each step has been carved from hardship, the cruel judgments, the relentless labor, the whispers that trail behind you like shadows. The scars you bear are not only etched into your skin but seared into your soul. Your hands tremble slightly, calloused and stained from toil, yet they carry the fragile power of survival itself. Your breath catches in your chest, heavy as stone, yet your heart still beats, strong, defiant, unwilling to surrender. And around you, the village continues its quiet rhythm. Faint sounds drift on the evening air, the creak of wooden carts, distant laughter muffled by stone walls, the soft bleating of sheep settling in their pens. But for you, the world seems to slow, each moment stretching thin like fragile glass, threatening to shatter. The faces you pass blur into a sea of indifference and suspicion, eyes flickering briefly with recognition before turning away. Time fractures beneath the weight of what is to come. This is the moment your legacy begins to crystallize. Will it be a tale whispered in fear, a name erased by fire and forgotten in the dust of history? Or will it be the spark that kindles hope, a testament to the fierce resilience of the human spirit, the courage to resist even when the night seems darkest? Your thoughts drift to those who came before you, ancestors whose voices echo faintly in the recesses of memory, women who bore the same burden and faced the same horrors. Their stories were often silenced, their lives consumed by flames or whispered away by fearful tongues. Yet beneath the ashes lies an unbroken chain of strength, a hidden current of resistance that flows through your veins. You feel the weight of their sacrifices pressing against your heart, a mix of sorrow and fierce pride. They endured pain and betrayal, yet held on to fragments of hope. Small acts of defiance, secret prayers, the quiet passing of knowledge under cover of darkness. Their courage is the foundation upon which your will now stands. NTHE choice before you is agonizingly clear, yet impossible to make without cost. To bow to the relentless machinery of power is to live barely, but at the price of your spirit, your voice, your very identity. To resist is to face the storm alone, to stand like a lone flame in a tempest, knowing it may be extinguished but refusing to be snuffed out without a fight. You feel the eyes of magistrates and clergy burning into you, cold and unyielding, their judgment heavier than any chains. They wield their authority with merciless precision, fortified by centuries of tradition and fear. Yet beneath their gaze, your soul stirs with a quiet, growing defiance. You are no longer merely a victim. You are a force to be reckoned with. The world narrows to a single point of clarity within you, a fierce resolve that crystallizes from the fog of fear and doubt. Legacy is not a gift bestowed by fate or history. It is a mantle you claim with every breath, every choice. It is forged in the fires of hardship and the cool steel of will. With slow, measured breaths, you steel yourself. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because deep inside, you know you must. You will not vanish into oblivion. You will carry the flame forward no matter the cost. The choice you make in this moment will ripple far beyond this village, beyond this era. It will become a beacon for those who come after, those whose voices have been silenced, but whose spirits endure. The world may seek to burn the story out of existence, but it cannot burn the spark of defiance that lives in your heart. Night falls fully, and stars prick the sky with cold fire. You feel the immense weight of what lies ahead. The path is perilous, shadowed by threats and uncertainty, but your resolve is like iron, unyielding and eternal. You whisper to the night, the words heavy with promise and hope. This day will echo through time. Your legacy is no longer a question of survival alone. It is a declaration, a promise that no matter how dark the night, no matter how fierce the fire, the story of your resistance will live on. It will burn brighter than any pyre, carried on the breath of generations yet unborn. You turn from the fading light, stepping forward into the unknown, into history. The future waits, silent, patient, shaped by the choices you make now. NN. What happened to witches after trial in medieval Europe? NTHE sky darkens to an inky black, velvet soft and infinite, dotted with cold, distant stars that glimmer faintly like whispers from another world. A gentle hush falls over the village, wrapping the crooked houses and narrow lanes in a cloak of stillness. The last embers of hearth fires sputter and fade, sending thin tendrils of smoke curling into the crisp night air. The sounds of daytime toil give way to the quiet murmurs of night. The distant hoots of owls, the rustle of dry leaves stirred by a wandering breeze, the faint shuffle of a restless animal seeking shelter. You retreat to the small, dimly lit space you call home. It is a place of rough wooden beams, worn earthen floors, and the soft glow of a flickering candle fighting back the shadows. Here, away from prying eyes and harsh words, the weight of the day begins to lift, replaced by a fragile peace as delicate as the flame dancing before you. Your hands move with practiced rhythm, gathering herbs dried earlier under the low sun, sage, lavender, rosemary, each with its own scent, its own promise of calm and protection. You bundle them carefully, tying them with frayed string into small sheaves, meant to hang from rafters or rest beneath pillows. These rituals are older than memory itself, sacred acts passed down through generations of women who understood the quiet power of healing and warding. The simple acts of preparation soothe you, centering your thoughts away from the chaos of accusations and judgment. The herbs release their faint fragrance, a mingling of earth, pine, and smoke that wraps around you like a soft blanket, a talisman against the fears lurking beyond your door. You settle beside the hearth, its glow casting warm golden light on the rough walls, illuminating faded tapestries and crude carvings that hint at stories long forgotten. The fire crackles softly, a companion in the darkness, its steady heartbeat a reminder that life persists even when hope seems faint. You trace the contours of a small amulet resting on your chest, a simple charm woven from bone and thread, worn smooth by time and touch. It is more than ornament. It is a vessel for memories, strength, and protection, a link to ancestors who walked this path before you. And as night deepens, your thoughts drift to the rituals of sleep, both practical and spiritual, that have offered solace for centuries. You imagine the women who came before, who laid down their weary bodies beneath starlit skies or humble thatched roofs. You hear their whispered prayers, the soft chanting that wove through the night air, binding the living to the unseen world. The knowledge that they too faced fear, isolation, and loss, yet found moments of peace and connection, is a quiet comfort. You breathe deeply, drawing in the cool night air, and feel the tension slowly ease from your body. Your mind, once tangled in worries and shadows, begins to clear, making space for rest and renewal. Though sleep is slow to come, chased away by the ghosts of yesterday's trials, it arrives eventually, gently, like a tide pulling you toward calm. And in the depths of sleep, you find refuge. Your dreams carry you beyond the village, beyond pain and fear, to a place where you are free. Here, beneath ancient trees heavy with blooming flowers, you walk unburdened. The air is sweet with the scent of jasmine and honey. You hear the laughter of children playing, the songs of birds that herald dawn. In this dream, you are whole, unashamed, and safe. When morning comes, it will bring new challenges and demands. But for now, in this sacred night's embrace, you gather strength. You are part of a timeless cycle of struggle and rest, sorrow and hope, endings and beginnings. And in this quiet moment, a final truth settles softly in your heart. And you are not just a shadow fading into history. You are the story itself, woven through time like golden threads in a vast tapestry. Your voice, your courage, your endurance ripple outward beyond these walls, carried in the hearts of those who remember. You were never just a servant. You were the story. Rest now. The night is long, but it is not endless. Tomorrow, the world will call your name once more. And when it does, you will rise. The first tender light of dawn unfurls slowly across the horizon, brushing the earth with hues of soft pink and golden amber. A gentle breeze stirs the sleeping village, carrying with it the faint scent of dew-soaked grass and smoldering hearths now cold and silent. The night's heavy cloak of shadows and whispered fears dissolves in the waking day, retreating like a tide that reveals the raw, unvarnished face of a world still scarred by its own secrets. You awaken in your modest chamber, a space worn by time, yet steeped in the quiet dignity of survival. The rough wood of your bed frame feels solid beneath your fingers, a grounding touch amid the swirling memories and emotions still clinging like morning mist. Your breath comes steady and slow, a rhythm that connects you to the long line of souls who have walked this path before and to those who will follow after. The story you have lived, this journey through suspicion, pain, resistance, and hope, is more than a mere echo from a forgotten past. It is a living thread, woven into the fabric of human history, stretching across centuries and continents, a testament to resilience and the indomitable will to endure. The women accused of witchcraft were not simply mythic villains or monstrous caricatures conjured by fear. They were real people, mothers, healers, midwives, wise women, whose knowledge and power threatened the fragile social orders built on control and conformity. Their lives were marked by contradictions, revered in secret, reviled in public, nurturers who could heal, yet branded as witches who could curse, pillars of their communities, yet outcasts, hunted by the very neighbors they helped. Their stories reveal the complex interplay between gender, power, fear, and survival, in a world that demanded obedience and punished difference with cruelty. NTHE legacy they left behind is not one of defeat, but of fierce, unyielding courage. It is a legacy forged in whispered prayers offered beneath moonlit skies, in herbs gathered from shadowed groves, in secret knowledge passed from mother to daughter across generations. Their strength was not always loud or visible. It was often a quiet, persistent flame, burning steadily against the gathering dark. You carry this legacy now. Within you flows the memory of their struggles and their triumphs, a lineage of resilience that defies the erasure sought by centuries of fear and oppression. By listening to their voices, soft, sometimes broken, but never truly silenced, you become a keeper of their flame, a guardian of truths too long hidden. Now, in the calm light of dawn, a question lingers gently in the quiet corners of your mind, a question that asks more than it answers. Could you have survived a single day in their world? Would you have the strength to stand against suspicion and scorn? To walk with courage amid whispers of fear? To tend the sick and dying while your own safety? These questions invite you to step beyond mere curiosity, to reflect deeply on the human capacity for both cruelty and compassion, for both destruction and healing. They remind us that the past is never as distant as it seems, that the struggles faced by those branded witches echo in the struggles faced by many today. The fight to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. NTHE path of resistance is often lonely and perilous, but it is also the path of profound humanity, the choice to nurture light within darkness, to whisper hope where silence threatens to fall. It is a path walked by countless unnamed women whose names may never be recorded in history, but whose spirits live on in every act of courage that defies injustice. And if this story has touched your heart, awakened your empathy, or shifted your understanding, I invite you now to share your thoughts. Your voice adds strength to the chorus of remembrance, a collective act of honoring those who came before. Speak of what moved you, of questions it raised, of the hope it kindled. By sharing, You do more than participate. You become part of an ongoing story, one that refuses to be silenced or forgotten. Together, these stories weave a tapestry of memory and meaning that reaches beyond time itself. NT, thank you for choosing to walk this path. Thank you for listening with an open heart and an open mind. You are not merely a witness. You are a storyteller, a bearer of memory, a guardian of truth. Every word you speak, every story you tell, is a triumph over silence and oblivion. Remember this: the past is alive within you. It breathes in the earth beneath your feet. It sings in the wind that brushes your skin. It pulses in the stories etched upon your soul. By remembering, you honor the lives that built the world you walk today. By telling their stories, you light the way for those who will come after. Rest well now, storyteller. The night has passed, but your journey continues. With every step you take, you carry forward the flame, lighting a path through darkness toward understanding, justice, and hope.